Nina's starship glided silently through the purple haze of Solara's orbit. The planet below shimmered with oceans that reflected sunlight in brilliant streaks of silver and gold. She had been traveling for hours through the vast emptiness of space, but nothing could dull her excitement. Today was meant to be a moment of peace, a short break from the relentless demands of running her company. For years, she had built her tech empire from scratch, guiding it with a combination of intelligence, intuition, and tireless effort. She deserved this luxury, and she was determined to enjoy it. The spa station appeared ahead, suspended like a jewel against the glowing atmosphere of Solara. Its sleek towers stretched into the sky, and its transparent domes reflected the stars. It promised comfort, rejuvenation, and an escape from the pressures of life on Earth, known as the Solara Oasis. It catered to the wealthiest travelers in the galaxy. Its reputation as a place of peace and perfection preceded it. Nina smiled as her ship docked, anticipating the serenity she would soon feel. Inside the docking bay, the atmosphere was immaculate. Soft white lights lined the walls, and smooth floors reflected her every step. Robotic attendants moved gracefully, offering guidance to visitors as they arrived. Their polished metal surfaces glimmered, and their eyes glowed with soft, welcoming light. Nina felt a thrill at the blend of technology and luxury. She walked with confidence, her presence commanding attention even without meaning to, as she approached the main entrance. The first signs of trouble appeared. The reception area was elegant, with holographic displays showing spa services, schedules, and a list of VIP guests. Nina approached the welcoming desk, her identification ready. The attendant, a humanoid robot named Arius, scanned her credentials. Its eyes glowed brighter, and a soft mechanical voice spoke. Access denied. VIP area restricted. Please consult management. Nina's brow furrowed. She had booked the highest-tier package available months ago. No human, no AI, had the right to block her access. She attempted to reason with Arius, explaining her reservation. Her identity as the CEO of Novacore Technologies, and her intention to use the spa responsibly. The robot repeated its statement, unwavering. Nina felt a twinge of frustration, but she refused to let it show. Patience was a tool she had honed over years, and now it would serve her well. "Where's your management?" she asked calmly, her voice firm. "I need to speak with someone immediately." Arius directed her to a set of elevators that led to the upper floors. As she moved, she noticed subtle shifts in the behavior of human staff around her. Some avoided her gaze. Others whispered quietly to one another. There was a tension in the air, one that did not belong in a place meant for relaxation. Nina noted it carefully. Her experience in corporate environments had trained her to read situations quickly, and this one smelled of hidden bias. The elevator doors opened, revealing a hallway lined with doors to private consultation rooms. The walls were smooth, decorated with softly glowing panels that displayed calming landscapes. Nina stepped out, her heels clicking against the polished floor. She had expected luxury, but instead, she felt the first sting of exclusion. It was subtle, but unmistakable. The management team seemed to hesitate before acknowledging her presence. A young woman at the end of the hall finally approached. "Can I help you?" the manager asked, her tone polite but distant. Her eyes shifted slightly, avoiding Nina's gaze. "Yes," Nina said, holding up her reservation data. "I am here for my appointment. I was denied access by your front system. Please explain why." The manager glanced at her tablet, scrolling through information quickly. "It seems there was a restriction placed on your account. Our VIP protocols only allow certain individuals at certain times." Nina's mind raced. She had booked this session months ago, following every instruction. She knew the booking system inside and out. Something was wrong. She remained calm, but her fingers clenched at her side. Calm was necessary, but action would soon be required. "I do not understand," she said evenly. "I followed every step. I reserved the highest tier service. Nothing in my history should prevent me from entering." The manager hesitated, then spoke again. I am not sure why the system flagged you. Perhaps it was an error." Nina nodded slowly. She had seen errors before, but she had also seen subtle discrimination masquerading as error. She could feel it in the hesitation, the nervous shifting of the manager's eyes, the slight tightness in the shoulders of the staff nearby. She had faced bias before, in meetings, in boardrooms, in negotiations across the galaxy. She had always faced it with intelligence, strategy, and composure. "I will wait," Nina said. "But I expect the issue to be resolved immediately." The manager nodded, seeming relieved that Nina did not raise her voice. She turned to speak with another staff member and left Nina standing in the soft glow of the hallway. Nina took a slow breath, observing her surroundings. The spa was impressive in design, yes, but she could already see cracks beneath the surface. Equipment was polished and clean, yet some of the high-tech systems hummed unevenly. Some panels flickered. There were gaps in maintenance logs she had accessed through the public data terminals. Luxury was one thing, but excellence was another. She could sense the difference instinctively. While she waited, Nina's mind turned to analysis. She had faced obstacles before, and each time she had turned them into opportunities. The challenge here was clear. She needed to address the management's bias, restore order, and ensure her own dignity. She was not just a visitor here. She was a problem solver, a leader, and someone who would not be underestimated. Minutes passed. Staff moved around her, busy with their tasks, but the air of hesitation persisted. Finally, the manager returned. "Ms. Nina, we apologize for the inconvenience. The system has been updated. You may proceed to your session." Nina smiled faintly, but she did not relax. She knew better than to trust appearances. A single apology did not erase the subtle patterns of behavior she had observed. She followed the manager into the spa chamber, a room filled with softly glowing pods and the quiet hum of technology. It was beautiful, a perfect blend of comfort and science. Yet, in her mind, she cataloged each flaw, each sign of mismanagement, each hesitation in the staff's behavior. As she entered the pod, Nina allowed herself a moment to appreciate the technology. The pod adjusted to her body automatically, scanning her vitals and calibrating to her preferred comfort settings. Warm light filled the chamber, and soft sounds of a simulated ocean played through hidden speakers. It was serene, almost magical. For a moment, she let herself imagine the peace she had come for. But her focus remained sharp. She was here not only as a client, but as a future observer, potential reformer. Her thoughts drifted to her company, to the teams she had built, to the negotiations awaiting her at the corporate summit. She understood that true leadership was not just about making decisions in the boardroom. It was about perceiving systems, recognizing flaws, and acting decisively when required. She would not let a single setback, no matter how subtle, undermine her principles. The pod began its sequence, and Nina felt the first wave of relaxation. Her body softened, her muscles loosened, and her mind cleared. Yet even in this state, her analytical mind continued to work. She observed the systems, noting the integration of AI protocols, the areas where human oversight failed, and the opportunities to improve. In her mind, she drafted the steps she would take once she left the spa. This was not a simple visit. It was an observation, a test, and a lesson in leadership. When the session concluded, the pod opened automatically. Nina stepped out, her senses refreshed and her resolve stronger than before. She thanked the staff politely, her voice calm and controlled. But she was already thinking ahead. There were records to review, management decisions to question, and systems to improve. She would not act impulsively, but when the time came, she would act decisively. As she left the chamber, Nina felt the full weight of the situation. She had come expecting relaxation, but she had found a lesson instead. Luxury was easy when everything went smoothly. True leadership revealed itself when systems failed, when biases emerged, and when one's judgment was tested. She had faced such moments before, and each time, she had emerged stronger. Nina's footsteps echoed in the hallway as she returned toward the elevators. She glanced around, taking note of every detail, every flaw, every hesitation. She was not angry. She was focused. She was already preparing her next steps, thinking of how she would address the management team, how she would ensure fairness, and how she would transform this challenge into an opportunity. As the elevator doors closed, Nina felt a quiet satisfaction. The day had not gone as planned, but that was often the case with life. True strength, she knew, was measured not by comfort, but by response. She was ready for what came next. Nina stepped out of the elevator and into the upper lobby of the spa station. The room was brighter here, filled with holographic projections of forests, waterfalls, and distant planets. The air smelled faintly of exotic flowers, carefully simulated for human senses. Yet, despite the beauty and serenity, Nina felt a familiar tension. Something in the atmosphere made her pause, sensing that her presence was not entirely welcome. She moved forward, her posture calm but firm. Every step a reminder that she was in control of herself. Even if others were not acting professionally, the humans managing the upper floors glanced at her with fleeting uncertainty. A few whispered to one another, quickly hiding the traces of their conversation when she approached. Nina noted the reactions with precision. In her years of leadership, she had learned to read small signals, the shifting of eyes, the slight pause before speaking, the subtle hesitation in tone. None of this escaped her notice. The spa's reputation was that of excellence, yet the behavior of the staff told a different story. There was bias, deliberate or not, behind the polite words and automated courtesy. A young man approached, carrying a tablet that glowed with soft light. "Ms. Nina," he said cautiously, "please follow me. Management will meet you shortly." His tone was polite, but it lacked warmth. Nina followed silently, her mind reviewing every interaction so far. She had expected luxury, but she had not expected subtle hostility. It was an important lesson. Appearances were often deceiving. True leadership required discernment and action. Even in seemingly calm environments, the corridor was lined with private rooms, each door engraved with golden letters displaying the type of service inside. Nina observed the design, appreciating the technology while noting inefficiencies. Some doors had maintenance warnings blinking faintly. Panels that were meant to provide real-time updates flickered. Even in a place marketed as perfect, flaws existed. Nina realized she was not just a visitor. She was an evaluator. Her mind cataloged the problems silently, preparing for the confrontation she knew would come. The manager soon arrived. She was a woman with short dark hair and a professional demeanor, but there was tension in her shoulders. "Ms. Nina," she said, "I am truly sorry about the confusion earlier. There was a system error." Nina raised a calm hand. "I understand. However, an error is not the only explanation. I noticed hesitation from your staff and gaps in your system protocols. I want a full explanation of what caused these issues." Her tone was firm, but she avoided anger. Calm authority had always achieved more than force. The manager glanced around nervously before speaking. "We have strict VIP protocols. They are meant to prevent overcrowding in the main spa areas. It appears your credentials were flagged due to a miscommunication between our system and the boarding AI. It is corrected now." Nina nodded slowly. She listened carefully. The explanation was partially true, but it did not account for the subtle bias she had observed: the whispering, the avoidance, the nervous glances. "I will accept your explanation for now," she said, "but I need to observe your operations. I need to understand how your management ensures fairness for all guests." The manager looked uncertain but agreed. Nina was given a temporary access card that allowed her to move through most of the upper floors. She began her observation immediately. She walked quietly, noting how staff interacted with other guests, how machines operated, and how information was processed. The spa, though beautiful and technologically advanced, had cracks beneath its polished surface. Some attendants miscommunicated tasks. Logs of machine maintenance were incomplete. A small AI assistant stumbled when coordinating multiple tasks. Nina's mind worked methodically. She cataloged every detail: human behavior, AI efficiency, procedural gaps. These observations were not for complaint. They were data. Data could solve problems. Data could improve systems. Leadership required recognition of flaws. Nina's instincts told her this spa's management had overlooked critical details in favor of appearances as she moved through the facility. Nina encountered a guest struggling with a malfunctioning pod. The attendant assigned to help seemed unsure of the protocol, flipping through a small tablet as if searching for instructions. Nina approached. "Can I help?" she asked calmly. The attendant looked startled, but nodded. Nina analyzed the pod's interface within seconds, identifying the problem and suggesting a simple override. The pod resumed normal function. The guest looked relieved. "Thank you," they said, smiling. Nina nodded, but she kept her focus on the broader picture. Individual fixes were helpful, but systemic solutions were better. She began formulating a plan in her mind. Once she returned to her ship, she would access the spa's full corporate network, review management records, and identify patterns of mismanagement. This incident was not isolated. It reflected a culture that tolerated inefficiency and bias. Hours passed. Nina observed staff interactions closely. Some managers delegated tasks ineffectively. Others prioritized certain guests over others without clear reason. She noticed subtle favoritism toward older, wealthy clients, while dismissing others who did not fit the preferred profile. Every detail reinforced what she had suspected. This was not an isolated technical glitch. The system, both human and machine, was flawed at its core. Her calm observation did not go unnoticed. A junior staff member approached her cautiously. "Miss Nina, you seem very knowledgeable. Have you had experience with spa systems before?" Nina smiled faintly. "Not exactly spa systems," she replied, "but I understand management, technology, and fairness. When systems fail, the problem is often leadership, not technology. That is what I am here to observe." The staff member nodded, seeming impressed, and quickly moved on. Nina continued her rounds. She checked logs, reviewed schedules, and examined AI protocols. Even the most sophisticated systems had gaps in logic. Some tasks were not automated effectively. Others relied on outdated human judgment, introducing potential bias. Nina's mind cataloged every weakness, as if preparing for a report. Finally, she returned to the main lounge. The sun of Solara shone through the transparent dome, casting golden reflections across the polished floor. Guests lounged in chairs, sipping beverages from floating trays. The environment was beautiful, yet Nina felt a quiet sense of dissatisfaction. Beauty alone could not compensate for structural flaws. True excellence required fairness, efficiency, and accountability. She requested a meeting with the head of management. Soon, the manager returned with 2 assistants. "Ms. Nina," she began, "we are ready to answer your questions. Please tell us your concerns." Nina took a deep breath. "I observed hesitation from your staff, inconsistent protocols, and gaps in your systems. There is favoritism in guest treatment, and the AI management seems poorly integrated. These are serious issues for an institution that claims to provide excellence. I need to know why this is happening, and what steps you are taking to correct it." The manager looked uneasy. "We are aware of minor inefficiencies. We are always improving our systems. This is a high-pressure environment, and mistakes happen." Nina shook her head gently. "Mistakes are one thing. Bias and neglect are another. I observed patterns, not errors. Systems should be designed to prevent human prejudice and ensure consistency. If leadership allows flaws to continue, the integrity of the institution suffers. I will need to review your internal reports, schedules, and AI protocols. Transparency is required." The room went silent. The assistants glanced nervously at one another. For the first time, Nina felt a shift in the energy of the management team. Her presence, calm and authoritative, demanded attention. She had observed, cataloged, and prepared. Now it was time to assess. Minutes later, the manager handed over access to digital records. Nina opened them on a portable tablet she carried. The data confirmed her observations. Maintenance logs were incomplete. Guest treatment was uneven. AI alerts had been ignored. Staff schedules were mismanaged. Patterns of favoritism and neglect were visible. What had seemed like small glitches were evidence of a broader problem. Nina's mind worked quickly. She calculated the impact of these inefficiencies. Lost revenue, dissatisfied clients, risk to reputation, and potential failure of high-tech systems due to human error. Every flaw was a problem, every oversight a risk. She knew what needed to be done, yet she paused. Leadership required more than observation. It required timing and strategy. Acting impulsively would create resistance. Acting carefully would ensure decisive results. She would wait, gather all information, and act with precision. Her next steps would not be reactionary. They would be transformative. As she left the meeting room, Nina reflected on the lessons of the day. Luxury was not just comfort or beauty. True excellence required attention, fairness, and vigilance. Every system, no matter how advanced, was only as strong as its leadership. She had observed weakness, but she had also seen opportunity. Walking back through the lobby, she noticed subtle changes in staff behavior. Some avoided her gaze, while others watched curiously. Nina's presence had already altered the environment. People recognized authority, even when it was calm and quiet. She smiled faintly to herself. Leadership was not always loud or aggressive. Sometimes it was careful, observant, and unyielding in principle. Nina returned to her starship, the Solara Winds, casting long streaks of purple and gold light across the docking bay. She moved with calm efficiency, her mind already sorting through the data she had collected. The spa had been beautiful, advanced, and promising, yet beneath its gleaming surfaces lay inefficiency, bias, and mismanagement. She had anticipated an escape, a brief pause from her responsibilities, but instead she had found a challenge. She welcomed it. Challenges were opportunities for action. Nina never shied away from them. Once inside her ship, she connected to the spa's corporate network. The system required multiple levels of clearance. But as the CEO of Novacore Technologies, she possessed the necessary authority through her strategic partnerships. Her fingers moved quickly across the holographic interface, scanning records, AI logs, and staff schedules. What she discovered confirmed her suspicions. Several key managers had been ignoring automated alerts. Maintenance schedules were incomplete, leaving high-tech equipment vulnerable to failure. Staff assignments were inconsistent, resulting in some guests receiving preferential treatment while others were neglected. Nina's eyes narrowed. These were not isolated mistakes. They were systemic problems born from leadership that valued appearances over substance. A luxury spa was supposed to embody perfection, yet the management had failed to uphold even basic standards. Their failures were not technical. They were human. And human failures could be corrected with decisive action. She leaned back in her chair and considered her options. She could confront the management directly, demanding explanations and promises of improvement. She could leave quietly, taking the experience as a lesson. Or she could act decisively, using the authority at her disposal to enforce accountability. Leadership required courage. Complacency allowed errors to persist. Nina chose action. She drafted a detailed report, summarizing every flaw she had observed. She included screenshots of incomplete maintenance logs, examples of staff favoritism, and records of AI alerts that had been ignored. Her analysis was precise, methodical, and professional. It did not contain emotion or accusation, only facts and evidence. She knew that facts, not anger, created change. Once her report was complete, she contacted the spa's board of directors. A secure video link connected her to the main conference room on the station. The board members appeared one by one, a mix of human and AI representatives. Their expressions were polite but curious. They had not expected a client, no matter how influential, to conduct such a thorough investigation. "Thank you for taking my call," Nina began, her voice calm and controlled. "I recently visited your facility and observed significant flaws in your management systems. I have prepared a detailed report, which I will present now." She shared the holographic display, allowing the board to review every record she had collected. The board members studied the data in silence. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others whispered quietly to their AI assistants. Nina continued, outlining the patterns of mismanagement and the risks these failures posed to the spa's reputation, revenue, and operational efficiency. She highlighted specific examples of bias, incomplete maintenance, and poor staff coordination. Each point was supported by concrete evidence, leaving little room for denial. After several minutes, the head of the board, a tall man named Oren, spoke. "Ms. Nina, your observations are thorough. We were unaware that these issues were so widespread. We will review your report in full and discuss next steps." Nina remained calm. She had expected this response, but she knew that discussion alone would not create change. She had anticipated resistance, hesitation, and bureaucracy. Leadership required persistence, and she was prepared to follow through. "Mr. Oren," she said, "discussion is important, but action is essential. These flaws are not minor. They are systemic and require immediate correction. Leadership must be held accountable for the performance of the facility." A murmur ran through the board. Oren's expression hardened slightly. "You suggest?" "What exactly?" Nina's voice remained even. "I suggest that the current management team be removed from their positions. Interim leadership should be appointed immediately, the oversight to ensure fairness, efficiency, and proper use of technology. The spa cannot continue operating under flawed leadership without risking failure and damage to its reputation." The room went quiet. Some members exchanged glances. Removing an entire management team was unprecedented. Yet Nina's evidence left them little choice. The patterns of neglect and favoritism were undeniable. Her authority as a corporate leader and investor gave weight to her recommendations. Oren cleared his throat. "Your evidence is compelling. While this is a difficult decision, I agree that immediate action is necessary. The management team will be removed, and interim leaders appointed under your guidance." Nina nodded, her composure unwavering. "I will work with your staff to implement these changes and ensure a smooth transition. The facility must continue operating while these improvements take place. Leadership is not about punishment. It is about restoring integrity and excellence." With the board's approval, Nina began coordinating the transition. She contacted trusted associates from her own company, individuals she knew to be competent, fair, and decisive. They agreed to oversee the spa temporarily, ensuring that every system was reviewed, every protocol corrected, and every staff member trained to meet consistent standards. Back on the station, Nina observed the spa from a distance, watching as the staff reacted to the sudden changes. Some were nervous, unsure how to adapt. Others seemed relieved, sensing that leadership had finally addressed the flaws that had caused tension and inefficiency. Nina's presence had already reshaped the environment. People responded to competence, clarity, and decisive action. She moved methodically, checking each department of the spa. The maintenance crew received immediate instructions to review all equipment and complete overdue tasks. Staff schedules were reorganized to ensure fairness and prevent favoritism. AI systems were recalibrated to flag errors and alert human supervisors without delay. Every detail mattered. Nina knew that excellence was achieved not through appearances, but through careful, consistent action. During the process, she encountered resistance from some members of the former management team. They attempted to argue, to explain away their failures, and to assert their authority. Nina listened calmly, acknowledging their words, but remaining firm in her decisions. Leadership was not about personal comfort or ego, it was about results. Those unwilling to meet standards could not remain in positions of power. By the end of the day, the transition was complete. The spa was under interim leadership. The AI systems were functioning optimally, and staff protocols were clear and consistent. Nina reviewed every report, ensuring that every flaw had been addressed or scheduled for correction. She allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. The challenge had been significant, but her careful observation, strategic planning, and decisive action had restored order. She reflected on the lessons of the day. Leadership required more than authority. It required attention, analysis, and the courage to act when others faltered. Even in an environment designed for comfort and luxury, human flaws could undermine success. Excellence was not accidental, it was cultivated through vigilance and accountability. As night fell over Solara, the spa's domes glowed softly against the darkening sky. From her ship, Nina watched the facility, knowing that her intervention had made a real difference. She had acted with intelligence, fairness, and precision, transforming a situation of bias and inefficiency into one of order and opportunity. Her thoughts turned to the broader implications. If leadership could fail in a luxury spa, it could fail anywhere. Yet the principles she applied here, analysis, accountability, and decisive action, were universal. They were principles that applied to corporations, governments, and even interstellar operations. Nina felt a quiet satisfaction. The day had not gone as she had expected, but it had gone as it should. She had turned a challenge into an opportunity to lead and to improve systems. As she prepared to leave the station for the next leg of her journey, Nina allowed herself a small smile. The spa's future was secure, the staff now guided by capable leadership, and the systems functioning as intended. More importantly, she had demonstrated the power of human intelligence, courage, and determination. Even in a world of advanced technology and artificial intelligence, human leadership remained vital. Nina reflected on her own journey. From her earliest days, building Novacore Technologies, to her rise as a respected leader, she had faced obstacles and bias repeatedly. Each challenge had tested her resolve, sharpened her judgment, and strengthened her ability to act with clarity. The events at Solara Oasis were another example of that truth. Leadership was not about being accepted or liked. It was about ensuring systems functioned, people were treated fairly, excellence was achieved. With her mission complete, Aina set a course for the corporate summit awaiting her on the next planet. She felt renewed, confident, and ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The spa had tested her patience, her insight, and her decisiveness. She had risen to the occasion, proving once again that human ingenuity, fairness, and determination could. Nina's ship left the orbit of Solara, leaving behind the spa that had been transformed under her guidance. She felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. The challenge had been greater than she expected, but she had not only met it, she had turned it into an opportunity to prove the power of human leadership. The spa, once flawed and inefficient, now operated with precision, fairness, and excellence. Guests were satisfied, staff were confident, and AI systems functioned flawlessly alongside human oversight. Yet Nina's mind did not dwell on accomplishments alone. She understood that true success came from sustaining change. Systems could revert to old habits if leadership faltered. She had ensured that interim managers were capable, trained, and committed to excellence. She had implemented audits and regular checks to prevent errors and bias from creeping back. Excellence was not a single achievement. It was a continuous process, maintained through attention, intelligence, and accountability. Her thoughts returned to the day she first arrived at the spa. She remembered the sting of being denied access, the subtle gestures of hesitation from the staff, and the tension that hung in the air. What had seemed like a minor inconvenience had revealed a systemic flaw, and she had responded not with anger, but with observation, analysis, and decisive action. That was the essence of leadership. It was not reactive. It was deliberate, strategic, and fair. Nina reviewed the reports from her team. Every task had been completed. Maintenance logs were up to date. Staff schedules were transparent, ensuring fairness for all guests. Guest feedback was overwhelmingly positive, highlighting the professionalism and courtesy of the team. Even high-profile visitors praised the spa as an example of excellence. Nina's approach had created results that were visible, measurable, and lasting. She reflected on the human element of her success. Technology alone could not ensure perfection. AI systems were efficient, but they lacked judgment. Human staff were capable, but without guidance, they could make errors or show favoritism. Leadership bridged the gap. It combined observation, understanding, and decisive action. By guiding both humans and machines, Nina had created an environment where both worked together seamlessly. Her mind shifted to broader implications. If a spa could operate poorly despite advanced technology and luxury design, what about corporations, governments, or interstellar institutions? Systems without proper leadership were vulnerable to error, inefficiency, and bias. Leadership, therefore, was not optional, it was essential. Excellence depended on human intelligence, applied with fairness and courage. As her ship cruised through the void, Nina received messages from the spa staff. They thanked her for her guidance, praising her clarity, fairness, and strategic thinking. Many expressed relief that the environment had become more just and efficient. Some mentioned that the previous management had created stress, confusion, and uncertainty. Nina listened carefully, absorbing their words as feedback. Leadership was not about ego or authority. It was about creating environments where people could perform at their best. Her thoughts returned to the future. She knew that challenges would continue to appear, systems would inevitably face flaws, and that human error would persist. But she also knew that preparation, observation, and decisive action could overcome these challenges. The spa had been a demonstration of this principle. From flawed systems and hesitant staff, she had created a functioning, efficient, and fair institution. She had proven that human leadership was more powerful than appearances or technology alone. Later, she accessed the spa's AI network remotely. She tested automated systems, checked maintenance schedules, and monitored staff activity. Every system operated flawlessly. The AI responded to potential errors immediately, alerting human staff who were prepared to act. Nina smiled faintly. She had anticipated challenges, prepared solutions, and ensured sustainability. Excellence was no longer accidental at the Solara Oasis. It was engineered through leadership. A communication arrived from the spa's board of directors. Oren, the head of the board, appeared on her display. "Miss Nina," he said, "your intervention has transformed our facility. We are grateful for your guidance. The spa is now a model for other institutions across the galaxy. Your leadership has set a standard for excellence that others will follow." Nina nodded calmly. "Thank you, Mr. Oren. Leadership is about more than authority. It is about observation, analysis, and decisive action. Technology can assist, but humans must guide systems with fairness and accountability. I am pleased that the spa now operates at its potential." Oren smiled. "Your example will inspire others. We plan to document this process and share it as a model for leadership in other facilities. Your influence will extend far beyond the station." Nina allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. She had transformed a flawed institution into a shining example of efficiency, fairness, and excellence. But she remained humble. The work of leadership was ongoing, and vigilance was required to maintain results. Excellence, she knew, was not a final destination. It was a continuous journey as she set course for her next destination. Nina reflected on the lessons she had learned. She remembered the subtle signs of bias, the hesitant staff, and the incomplete systems she had observed. Those challenges had revealed the weaknesses in leadership and systems. By addressing them decisively, she had demonstrated the strength of human capability, insight, and fairness. Her reflection turned inward. She considered her own growth, her years building Novacore Technologies from a small venture to an interstellar enterprise. Each challenge she faced had refined her judgment, strengthened her resolve, and reinforced the principles that guided her leadership. Patience, observation, fairness, decisiveness, and the ability to act strategically were her tools. The spa had tested these tools, and she had passed with distinction. Later, she reviewed the training protocol she had implemented at the spa. Staff were now educated not only in technical operations but also in principles of fairness, ethical behavior, and teamwork. AI systems were designed to assist human decision-making, not replace it. Every component of the spa's operations reflected the integration of human intelligence and technology. It was a living example of the power of human leadership to transform even advanced systems. Nina allowed herself a brief smile. The spa was no longer just a place of luxury. It was a model of excellence, fairness, and efficiency. It demonstrated that when humans lead with intelligence, courage, and integrity, even complex systems can operate flawlessly. She had proven that leadership, not technology alone, was the key to success. As her ship glided past distant stars, Nina's mind turned to the future. There would be other challenges, other systems in need of reform, and other institutions requiring guidance. She was ready for all of them. Her experience at Solara Oasis had strengthened her resolve and expanded her understanding of leadership. She knew that human capability, when guided by fairness, intelligence, and decisiveness, could transform even the most flawed systems. She reflected on the broader message of her journey. Success was not about wealth, appearances, or power alone. It was about the ability to perceive flaws, understand systems, and act decisively to create fairness, efficiency, and excellence. Leadership was the human element that ensured technology, resources, and institutions could achieve their potential. Without it, even the most advanced systems could fail. Nina also understood the importance of inspiration. Her actions had not only corrected the spa's flaws, but also inspired the staff, interim managers, and board members. They had witnessed firsthand the impact of careful observation, ethical decision-making, and strategic action. Her example would guide them in future situations, creating a ripple effect of excellence beyond the walls of the spa. By the time she approached her next destination, Nina's mind was already planning. She would continue to apply the lessons of Solara Oasis wherever she went. Every challenge would be met with observation, analysis, and decisive action. Every system could be improved, every leader could be guided, and every organization could achieve excellence. Leadership, she knew, was the ultimate tool for human achievement. As she prepared to enter the orbit of the next planet, Nina allowed herself one final reflection. The spa had been a test, an unexpected challenge that revealed both flaws and potential. Through careful observation, strategic planning, and decisive action, she had transformed the institution completely. She had proven that human intelligence, fairness, and courage could overcome bias, inefficiency, and neglect. Nina smiled quietly to herself. The universe was vast, full of challenges and opportunities, and she was ready for all of them. Her journey was far from over, but the lessons of Solara Oasis would guide her always. Leadership, she knew, was not just a skill, it was a responsibility, a practice, and a force capable of transforming the world. And with that thought, Nina set course for the future, confident in her ability to face any challenge, improve any system, and inspire excellence wherever she went. The triumph of Solara Oasis was not the end of her journey, it was proof of what human intelligence, determination, and leadership could achieve in a universe that demanded the very best from those who dared to lead. Nina's influence over the spa had only just begun. As she observed the station from her ship, she realized that while removing the management team was the first step, the real challenge lay in restructuring the entire system. The spa, though luxurious, had been built on appearances rather than efficiency and fairness. Nina knew that lasting change required careful planning, precise execution, trust in capable individuals. She called her team of trusted associates, specialists in both technology and operations. Each had a reputation for excellence, integrity, and fairness. Their mission was clear: temporarily take over the spa's operations, assess all systems, implement reforms, and ensure that every guest received equal treatment. Nina assigned roles methodically. One group would handle maintenance and technical checks. Another would supervise human staff. A third would audit guest treatment and service standards. Efficiency and fairness must guide every decision. Nina instructed her team. Luxury is only valuable if it is consistent and reliable. The spa's reputation depends on the integrity of its operations. Her team nodded. They were not intimidated by the scale of the task. Rather, they were inspired by Nina's clarity and authority. Leadership, she had taught them, was not about commanding fear or obedience. It was about inspiring action through vision, organization, and accountability. As the new interim leaders moved through the spa, Nina coordinated from her ship. She accessed the station's network, monitoring AI systems and staff activity in real time. The spa's automated systems were powerful, but had been misused by the former management. Tasks had been left incomplete, alerts ignored, and guest requests mishandled. Nina quickly implemented a series of automated checks. ensuring that critical systems could not be bypassed, that human staff were held accountable for proper procedures. The human staff reacted in a mix of relief and apprehension. Some had grown frustrated under the previous management's inconsistent leadership. Others were nervous about sudden changes. Nina addressed each group personally, walking through the spa, speaking calmly, and explaining the new standards. Her presence inspired confidence. People responded to competence and fairness, not fear, in the maintenance department. Nina's team identified equipment that had been neglected. Rejuvenation pods were cleaned, calibrated, and tested. AI monitoring systems were updated to flag any malfunctions immediately. The spa's energy systems, designed to provide optimal comfort while conserving resources, were audited and corrected. Efficiency improved almost immediately. Meanwhile, the staff schedules were reorganized. The previous management had assigned shifts inconsistently, often giving preference to certain guests while ignoring others. Nina implemented a transparent rotation system that ensured every guest was treated equally. Every staff member received clear instructions, performance expectations, and access to assistance if they encountered challenges. Fairness was now built into the system itself. As the day progressed, Nina observed guest interactions carefully. Some visitors had previously received substandard service. Today, they were greeted promptly, guided efficiently, and provided with high-quality care. Complaints that had been overlooked before were resolved quickly. Feedback from guests became overwhelmingly positive. The spa's atmosphere transformed from tense and cautious to calm and professional. Yet, despite the smooth progress, Nina remained vigilant. She understood that change could provoke resistance, and she anticipated attempts by former management supporters to undermine the reforms. Monitoring communications and reviewing staff behavior allowed her to detect subtle attempts at sabotage or slow compliance. Every issue was addressed immediately, not with punishment, but with guidance and corrective action. Leadership was about correcting mistakes before they escalated. By evening, the spa had become almost unrecognizable compared to the day before. Rejuvenation pods operated flawlessly. Human staff moved efficiently and courteously. AI systems coordinated perfectly with human oversight, preventing errors before they could affect guests. Even the most subtle traces of bias had been eliminated through careful auditing and clear procedures. Nina allowed herself a small, quiet satisfaction. Progress had been rapid. She knew it was just the beginning. The next challenge emerged when the spa received a high-profile guest, an ambassador from a distant planetary system. This visit was significant because the ambassador's presence would be observed by other corporate leaders and interstellar dignitaries. A failure would reflect poorly on both the spa and Nina's leadership. She prepared meticulously. Every detail was double-checked: pod settings, staff assignments, energy systems, and guest protocols. Her team rehearsed responses to potential issues. When the ambassador arrived, they were greeted with flawless service. Staff moved with precision and confidence. AI systems anticipated every need, from temperature adjustments to beverage preferences. Nina observed quietly from the monitoring station, ensuring that every element functioned smoothly. The ambassador was impressed. "This spa is remarkable," they said, smiling. "Every detail is perfect. How do you maintain such consistency?" Nina stepped forward, calm and confident. "Through careful observation, clear procedures, and accountability. Excellence requires attention to both technology and human behavior. Systems must be designed to prevent mistakes and ensure fairness for everyone." The ambassador nodded, clearly impressed. "I have never seen such a combination of technology and leadership. This will be an example for others." As the ambassador toured the spa, Nina's team continued their work. They implemented additional training for staff, ensuring that each member understood not only the technical aspects of their roles, but also the principles of fairness and consistency. Human judgment, she emphasized, could never be ignored, but it had to be guided by systems that supported ethical and efficient action. Throughout the day, Nina reflected on the lessons she had learned. Leadership was not merely about commanding authority. It was about perceiving flaws, creating solutions, and inspiring others to act with integrity. The spa, once a symbol of superficial luxury, had become a demonstration of human capability, fairness, and intelligence. By the evening, the spa had undergone a complete transformation. Guest satisfaction was at an all-time high. AI systems operated seamlessly alongside human staff. Maintenance protocols were updated and enforced. Staff morale was improved, with individuals taking pride in their work and confidence in their leadership. Nina's careful guidance had turned a flawed institution into a model of excellence. Yet she did not rest on these achievements. She understood that transformation required ongoing attention. Systems, no matter how well designed, could degrade over time if not monitored. She scheduled regular audits, updated AI protocols, and maintained oversight over human staff. Leadership was a continuous responsibility, not a one-time action. As she prepared to leave the spa for her next engagement, Nina walked through the facility one last time. The lights of the domes reflected the soft colors of Solara's evening sky. Staff greeted her with smiles and respectful nods. Guests were relaxed and satisfied. The spa no longer operated under bias or inefficiency. It had become a place where technology and humanity worked together, guided by fairness, intelligence, and decisive leadership. Nina paused, taking a deep breath. The challenge of the day had been greater than she anticipated, but the results were undeniable. Her observations, decisions, and actions had transformed an institution that once relied on appearances into a model of excellence. The power of leadership, she realized, was not in authority alone, but in the ability to observe, analyze, and act with clarity and purpose. As she departed the spa, her ship ascending into the Solara sky, Nina reflected on the impact of her work. Change had been achieved not through anger or confrontation, but through preparation, intelligence, and the careful application of authority. Human potential, guided by fairness and decisiveness, could transform flawed systems into models of excellence. The stars stretched endlessly ahead as her ship moved toward the next destination. Nina felt a sense of accomplishment, not pride, but clarity. The spa had been a test, a lesson, and an opportunity. She had passed it. She had proven that even in the most luxurious and technologically advanced environments, human insight, fairness, and leadership could create systems that worked efficiently, ethically, and beautifully. And yet she knew that challenges would always arise. There would always be situations requiring observation, analysis, and decisive action. But Nina was ready. Every step she took, every decision she made, reinforced the principle that human intelligence and leadership could overcome inefficiency, bias, and neglect. Excellence, she believed, was never accidental. It was cultivated through vigilance, knowledge, and courage. Her reflection was interrupted by a message from her team. The spa's systems had stabilized completely. Staff were performing better than ever. Guests were satisfied. The transition to interim leadership was successful, and the lessons of the day had been absorbed. Nina allowed herself a small smile. Mission accomplished. But she also knew this was only the beginning. Leadership, she reminded herself, required ongoing commitment. As she set course for the next leg of her journey, the glow of Solara faded behind her.